I will call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order at 7:30. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Patricia Pietzu, and Alderman LeBrun will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us, God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman Wilshire. Here. Alderman Clemmons.
Here.
Alderman Tenza. Alderman Cookson. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Karen. Here. Alderman Siegel. Alderman Schoeneman.
Here.
Alderwoman Malizzi-Gola. Present. Alderman McGinnis. Alderman LeBrun.
Present.
Alderman Moriarty.
I'm here.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman Lopez.
I'm here.
Alderman McCarthy.
Present.
We have 12 members present.
Also present, Corporation Counsel Stephen Bolton and His Honor Mayor James Donches. Does the Mayor wish to address the board?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. Well, a number of things have happened since the last meeting, our last meeting. But before I get to that, I want to say that I'm very glad that Alderman Dean is here to be recognized for his long service to the city. And in addition to the resolution, I do have a letter and one of our new keys to the city, which I will be able to read later. We had the holiday stroll back on Saturday, which was a great success. Many people, I don't know, the estimates range from 20 to 30,000 people showed up. I've heard both secondhand and firsthand that many of the businesses did very well. For example, I went into Wine Knot at their new location right down here, and she was saying that they had 1,000, 1,500 people come through on Saturday, and they did a lot of business, and I think others did as well. So people had a very good time. Santa was really in fine form, and so I think the whole night went very well, and we need to thank Great American Downtown and many, many people and organizations that worked to make that possible. In addition, Harbor Homes Partnership for Successful Living had their Thanksgiving, their annual Thanksgiving dinner, I think a week ago today. They had Governor Sununu, Senator Hassan, and others, including myself, serving, and it was overall a really, really good, really nice event. The other thing that happened is a week ago Friday, there was the 1-year anniversary ceremonies for the city's Safe Stations program. And we had ceremonies at all 6 of the fire stations, plus several other locations throughout the city. Those occurred simultaneously at 9 a.m., which leads me to the resolution on the agenda under new business that I'm introducing to provide for grant funding for a so-called peer recovery coach. Now, everyone has worked very hard together to make Safe Stations a success. NFR, our firefighters, have played a critical role. Harbor Homes Partnership for Successful Living is now picking people up within an average of, I think this past month, within 10 minutes. Of course, AMR is on top of it and provides very good analytics and data regarding all of the people who report to Safe Stations. So far, in the first year, almost 1,100 people have reported. OD medical calls are down 24% from a year ago, which is a significant increase. We know that nationally, the opioid addiction tide is still rising to some degree. Therefore, a reduction in the number of ODs is, I think, significant. But we're tracking what's going on very carefully. There is a group, a kind of a overseeing group that meets every 2 weeks to talk through the details of what's happening with safe stations, and those include myself, NFR, the ambulance company, AMR, Partnership for Successful Living, and their various organizations, Keystone Hall and others involved in treatment. A new organization called Revive Recovery, our hospitals, and some other people. And one trend that AMR has documented is that of the people reporting to safe stations now, in the last 3 or 4 months, around half, and in the last month, in the month of November, over a majority are people who are coming in for at least the second time. Now, this is not totally surprising because substance use disorder or addiction is a very serious brain disease once you get into the details of exactly what it is. And for most people to achieve long-term recovery, it takes more than one, and I think the average is at least 3 attempts. So it's not very surprising that people who've tried once and it slipped out of recovery come back again. It has been shown that the chances of success for long-term recovery for a person who is seeking that and who is in treatment are considerably improved by having someone to work with on a daily or weekly basis, a so-called, either a friend, a very close mentor, or a so-called peer recovery coach. And in order to keep more people in recovery, we need in Nashua a stronger network of peer recovery coaches and a stronger response. I mean, I think we've done a good job and we've made an impact, but we can, I believe, do better. As I said, the facts, both anecdotal and various studies, show that this peer recovery coaching has a very significant impact. So what does a peer recovery coach do? And this would be often a licensed drug and alcohol counselor. Peer recovery coach helps people who are coming off treatment or coming off a 28-day program or who are in treatment stay in recovery, helping them with daily problems when they are in a very vulnerable situation and have trouble thinking through even sort of normal lifetime situations. What if they can't find housing? What do they do? Where should they go to if they have a different medical problem? How about trying to find a job? How to organize just life in general? And this is what a peer recovery coach does, helps a person work through the daily struggles that a person in recovery has so that as they advance from 30 days to 60 to 90 to a year to 2 years and continue, and their brain continues to get better and they get into a very stable long-term recovery, this assists a great deal in that respect. Now we have that is peer recovery coaching or any mentor that works closely with a person with this type of problem. So we've had in the city for several months now Revive Recovery, which is opened 263 Main Street. It's been open since this summer. They're on grant funding for 3 years. They're led by Justin Etling, Nikki Casey, and Alan Irwin, who are all in long-term recovery. Justin for 20 years, Nikki and Alan for about 2 years. So what I'm proposing is, and of course this issue would be referred to a committee, is that we provide a $42,000 grant to Revive Recovery to hire a to hire a recovery coach who can work with people coming off the Safe Stations program, either who are coming out of a 28 or 30-day treatment program, Safe Stations, then the inpatient, and then they come out. Sometimes they're just kind of thrown into life, well, have a good life, and we don't really know what happens, or into an inpatient recovery program or intensive outpatient program over at Harbor Homes or elsewhere. Now, this recovery coach could work a caseload of 30 to 50 people who've reported to safe stations, and this could be a rotating group, and who have, I said, either gone through the 28-day treatment program or are in another type of treatment. If you agree to fund this proposal, this would be a one-year pilot. We would propose a contract with Revive Recovery, which we would bring to finance, to define their obligations under the grant. But what we need to do with respect to this is to develop data and information that can be used to show how effective this can be here in Nashua. For example, we can require that they report, the recovery report indicate and report how well people that how many people they're dealing with and how many people they've dealt with, how many are in recovery after 30 or 90 or 180 days or 360 days, the number of people that have gone into relapse, the number of people that have been lost. And if this proves to be as effective in keeping people, and it won't be everyone, but keeping many people in recovery as is suggested by research and by anecdotal reports, then we can use this data to convince other funding sources to help rapidly expand the Recovery Coach Network here in Nashua. It would help us understand what is happening, much better what is happening to the Safe Stations participants, and it would help us to demonstrate the effects and gain funding and expand this program. Now, I'm going to come to the committee, and I think I can bring the people from Revive, and you will, wherever this does go, and you can meet them. We can give you more data and more support. But I think that the issue of opioids here in Nashua is affecting so many people and so many families that I wanted to address you in some length to explain what I'm hoping to do, what I'm hoping you will adopt, and how I think we can build an even stronger response to the opioid problem in Nashua. And thank you, Mr. President. That's all I have.
Are there any responses to the remarks of the mayor? Alderwoman Melissa Collier.
Yes, I would just say, Mayor Donchis, that my experiences working with juveniles through the Juvenile Parole Board has shown to me that LADACs play an important role in working both with individuals as they travel the road of recovery and their families. Thank you.
Any other responses? I'm going to ask Alderman Wilshire to take the chair for a moment.
Recognition period.
First reading of Resolution 17-158, recognizing David W. Dean and naming the David W. Dean Park.
Alderman McCarthy.
I would move to suspend the rules so far as to allow for a second reading of our 17-158.
Motion is to suspend the rules. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries.
Second reading of Resolution 17-158, recognizing David W. Dean and naming the David W. Dean Park.
Alderman McCarthy.
Move for final passage of Resolution R 17-158.
Motion is to recommend. Motion is for final passage. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Alderman McCarthy. Alderman Dean.
resolution reads, recognizing David W. Dean and naming the David W. Dean Park. Resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Nashua that the city recognizes David W. Dean. First elected to the Board of Aldermen in 2001, David had served as a Board of Public Works Commissioner from 1998 to 2001. His interest in local politics was spurred by the Board of Public Works proposal to take one of the most successful basketball programs in the country and defund it. David ran and unseated a longtime incumbent. The proposal to defund the Biddy basketball program never happened, and Biddy basketball continues as the most successful youth program in Nashua. David ran for Alderman at large seat in 2001 and was reelected to the position for 4 terms. He was board president for 2 years. David has served on 24 different committees during his tenure as an alderman, including 12 years on budget review and finance, 10 years on infrastructure, 4 years on the Pennachuck Water Special Committee, and 8 years as trustee of the Board of Public Works Retirement System. David spearheaded an effort to build a concrete skateboard park with a kidney-shaped bowl. The skate park was recently relocated with David's assistance. Nashua now has a world-class skate park that rivals any on the East Coast. David has served on many committees, both aldermanic and appointed, and accomplished much during his tenure. Some of his most important efforts include sponsoring a resolution to fund the construction of a new home for the Senior Activity Center and a resolution to help the Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter reach their goal of a $250,000 match to construct a new facility. David has served Nashua in other capacities, such as volunteering for 26 years in youth baseball programs. David started with Nashua West Bambino in 1988 and spent many hours maintaining the facilities, running many tournaments, and as the program expanded, received grant funding to construct a ball field for the program, which was shared with the Boys and Girls Club. He spent time coaching in the City Babe Ruth program and served as the president of Nashua North Cal Ripken. The Nashua youth baseball programs merged, and David served as liaison to the city and maintained Murray Field in front of Homan Stadium for many years. Further resolved by the Board of Aldermen of the City of Nashua that the area between Amherst Street and Sergeants Avenue that includes Murray Field, basketball courts, tennis courts, and play area shown on the attached map be named David W. Dean Park. We have a plaque that's larger than most in order to fit everything on it.
I'm really, I'm humbled by this. I think, you do things in life for a reason. Politics you learn a lot through politics. You learn a lot, what they say, politics makes strange bedfellows, and you find out that a lot of good people, I served with a lot of good people over the years. We might not always have agreed. Sometimes things were contentious, but at the end of the day, the city runs, it costs a lot of money to run the city. And everybody here is here for a good reason. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, we've all stood here and been criticized to 10 ways to Sunday, but at the end of the day, you move on and you don't hold any grudges. So, I've enjoyed my time serving the city and its citizens, the taxpayers, tried to do what was best. And we always have to remember our kids because the kids are our future. I always looked at, if we don't help and create things for children to do, lots of times they create things that they shouldn't be doing. And it's best, as a life lesson for them to be not be self-absorbed and getting in trouble with doing things they shouldn't be doing. So, funding things such as skateboarding, baseball, and basketball, things just to keep the kids active, to me was really important. So, but I've enjoyed my time. I've started a new chapter in my life, and I'm extremely happy. And I've moved out of the city, although I still work here. But I've enjoyed all the time and all the people I've served with. And I would just like to thank the mayor and the board for this. This is quite. This is unbelievable, to tell you the truth. It was fun. A lot of I always enjoyed cutting grass. Especially, you know, you do a lot of, I used to see Jim. Jim would be walking around, I'd stop the mower and Jim would come over at Murray, we'd, you know, chew the cut a little bit. And then Jim would keep doing his walking through the, walking around the park and stuff. But it was fun. I found it extremely relaxing and I enjoyed it.
But we're not quite through with you. So I have a letter for you here. To the Honorable David Dean, I present you a key to the city of Nashua in honor of your nearly 20 years of service to our city. And actually, this is newly minted. This is our first one. So during those years in which you served in various roles on the Board of Aldermen as a commissioner of the Board of Public Works, you made an indelible impact that will be felt for generations to come. The presentation of a key to the city, a long-standing tradition dating back to medieval Europe, in part symbolizes that its recipient is a friend of that city. Acknowledging that, I can think of no more fitting person to receive such an honor. You have been a champion for Nashua's youth and a watchdog for fiscal responsibility. The new David Dean Skateboard Park, completed just before the end of your time on the board, serves as a symbol of your efforts. You fought hard to make the first park a reality, and again, when it was time to create a bigger and better one at the new location. On behalf of the Board of Aldermen, the City of Nashua, and the residents of our great city, I am proud to present David Dean this key to the city. Jim Donchis, Mayor of the City of Nashua. But don't try to use it in City Hall.
Does this go to the wastewater department?
Yeah, I'll get you in there.
Yeah. Great.
We have one last.
No, my high school picture. Gee, thank you, Brian. And
Thank you.
very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Reading of the minutes of the previous meeting. Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I move that the minutes of the Board of Aldermen meeting of November 14th be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended.
Motion is that the minutes of the Board of Aldermen meeting of November 14th, 2017 be accepted, placed on file, and that the reading be suspended. Is there any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Communications.
There are none.
Period for public comments relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. We have one speaker, Mr. Broderick.
Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Mike Broderick, 8 Boxwood Court. I am a member of the Board of Directors for the Nashua Senior Activities Center. I have two other members in the audience with me this evening. I want to speak on R-17-143, which is approving an amendment to the lease agreement with the Nashua Association for the Elderly. In our bylaws, Article 3, Board of Directors, Section 3.1, Powers, Responsibilities, and Accountability. The business and affairs of the association shall be managed by the board, who shall have and may exercise all the powers to which the association may be entitled pursuant to the applicable laws, the Articles of Agreement, and the bylaws. In the same Article, Article 3, 3.23, I won't read the whole thing, but down near the bottom of that first paragraph, any single person may serve as one of the city's designated representatives for as many as 3 consecutive 2-year terms, but will then have to rotate off the board for at least 1 full term before being replaced. So that's our bylaws. Where's my sheet here? On the Finance Committee's report, do have this somewhat organized. Here's the Finance Committee's report. Oops. On the Finance Committee's report, I just, somebody just can't find it here for a second. President Barney Barbera, on November 15th, this is the Finance Committee's report. Mr. Barbera, the current personnel assigned to the Senior Activity Center have been an asset to our organization. Their insight and diligence cannot be easily replaced by deleting this. We can continue with our efforts to bring our services to the many seniors of the city. This will give the city officials the flexibility to make appointments. If I had a table, I'd be better off. I usually work on a desk. So, on our bylaws, tab, under the president, section 7.2, the president shall be elected by the board and shall preside at all meetings of the board of directors, except as the board shall otherwise determine and shall have such other powers and duties as may be determined by the board. The president shall not also be the treasurer. The president shall, subject to the approval of the board of directors, nominate all chairpersons of board committees. It does not say in here that it includes his ability to negotiate leases. There was an email sent by the chairman of the governance committee, and on October 25th, and it's to the president. And the second paragraph says, the special ad hoc committee addressed the expiring active board directors' terms, dates, and makes the following motion to adopt and ratify the following state of the board of members' corresponding term duties to remain compliant with the National Senior Activity bylaws. On the Finance Committee report, Mr. Clemens said, where is he, Mr. Clemens? I guess my follow-up, oh, is it this one, this one? I agree. I don't think the terms limits of the boards like this may make any sense. If you get good people to the position, you need to keep them there. I'm almost done. The minutes of our meeting on September 28th from the Governance Committee, and I am on the Governance Committee, I'll try to paraphrase. We do not want to replace the people, because we do think they're great people with us. We want to make them full members of the board. That is our point and our goal, and that was in the minutes of our meeting September 28th. So we're trying to get the senior center, to expand our membership. We have a member on the board of directors who's not even 50, and he can't be a member of the senior center. So with the new regime coming in, the new board of aldermen coming in, there are a lot of young people. We would love to have some new faces on the board. But this is a contract, and you just can't arbitrarily change the contract. You have to, your finance committee has to send it to our finance committee. A contract is a binding obligation with everyone. If you do this, this is, most board of directors have term limits. You guys have term limits, the mayor has term limits, everybody has term limits. Our point here is not to eliminate Alderwoman Cowan and David Fredette. We want to keep them. We've already said that in our minutes. If you've read our minutes, and you can go to the library and read our minutes, on September 28th, we want to make them full elected members, and we would like the board and the mayor's office to appoint some new people to the board. If the mayor wants his designate to correspond with his term limits, we don't have a problem with that. Send it to us. Have your finance committee redo the motion and send it to our finance committee, so we have to follow our procedures in the bylaws. We have Robert's Rules of Order, parliamentary procedure, just like everyone else does in the world. So I am urging this board to table this motion, send it back to the finance committee, to send it to our finance committee. Let's work together to get this done so that we can make everyone happy here. But to arbitrarily send this down and change the terms of our lease agreement with the city, I think that's a mistake. So I really urge everyone in this board to table it and revisit it and talk to our finance committee. Thank you for the time.
Alderman Cookson?
Yes.
Alderman Cookson has joined us by phone. Alderman Cookson, can you hear us?
Alderman McCarthy, I am able to hear you. Thank you.
And I need to ask you where you are and who's with you.
I am in transit and planning to arrive at the Board of Aldermen meeting shortly, and nobody is with me.
Okay. Petitions.
Petitions for street discontinuance on a portion of Amherst Street, formerly utilized as part of the jug handle, which was reconfigured into a full signalized intersection.
Actually, what I'm going to do is ask Alderman Wilshire to make our standard procedural motion.
I move to accept the petition for street discontinuance as read, assign it to the Committee on Infrastructure and the Nashua City Planning Board, and that a public hearing be scheduled for Wednesday, December 27th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber.
All right, we'll do that one first. Motion is to accept the petition for street discontinuance as read, assign it to the Infrastructure and Nashua City Planning Board, and that a public hearing be scheduled for Wednesday, December 27th, 2017 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. Is there any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yeah, yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Schoeneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes,
We have 13 yeas.
motion carries. Nominations, appointments, and elections.
There are none.
Reports of committees. If there are no objections, I will declare the report of the Finance Committee of November 15th, 2017 accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, I will declare the report of the Human Affairs Committee of November 16th, 2017 be accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, I will declare the reports of the Infrastructure Committee of November 8th and November 22nd, 2017 accepted and placed on file. Written reports from liaisons.
There are none.
Confirmation of the mayor's appointments.
There are none.
Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of Resolution 17-134, authorizing the sale of land on the east side of Medical Center Drive, Sheet 31, Lot 12, to Southern New Hampshire Medical Center for $300,000, establishing an expendable trust fund for downtown redevelopment initiatives and appropriating the $300,000 of proceeds into the expendable trust fund.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, is that the amended version that we're,
I think you have a motion to amend.
okay, so the motion is, to replace, R 17-134 in its entirety by replacing it with a goldenrod copy provided with the agenda, and I'd like to speak to it.
Motion is to amend R 17-134 in its entirety by replacing it with the goldenrod copy provided with the agenda. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, the changes are that the agent to expand would change from the mayor to the Board of Aldermen, and also in the second paragraph in line 3, after the word include, we struck the words, but it's not limited to, and furthermore, by striking the following also, beautification projects and elimination of blight in line 4, after the word property, and inserting in its place the following, for the purpose of creating additional parking and for the upkeep and maintenance operations of our current parking lots.
Motion is to amend. Is there any further discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire. Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Schoeneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes,
We have 13 yeas.
motion carries. Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 17-139 as amended.
Motion is for final passage of R 17-134 as amended. Discussion? Would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen. Alderman Schöneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
No.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 12 yeas and 1 nay.
Motion carries and R 17-134 is adopted as amended.
Second reading of Resolution 17-139, authorizing the City of Nashua to enter into a lease agreement with Absolute Broadcasting LLC for a portion of 1 Pine Street extension.
Alderman Cookson, do you know the motions to make, or do you want someone to read the ones that are on your desk?
I would appreciate if Alderman Dowd would be so kind as to make the motions.
Okay. Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 17-139.
I think
I'm sorry,
we have an amendment first.
that's the amended. So we look,
The motion is then to amend R 17-139 in its entirety by replacing it with the
the
goldenrod copy.
copy.
You all heard the motion. Is there any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire. Yes. Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson. Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen. Alderman Schöneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas.
Motion carries and R 17-139 is amended. Do you have another motion, Alderman Dowd?
Yes. Make a motion for final passage of R 17-139.
Motion is for final passage of R 17-139 as amended. Is there any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Schöneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas.
Motion carries and R 17-139 is adopted as amended.
Second reading of Resolution 17-140, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $32,000 from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation into Public Health and Community Services Grant Activity, FY 2018, NHCF Substance Abuse Prevention.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 17-140.
Motion is for final passage of R 17-140. Is there any discussion? If not, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
Yes.
Alderman Clemmons.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Karen.
Yes.
Alderman Schöneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 13 yeas.
Motion carries and R 17, that was 140, is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-143, approving amendment to the lease agreement with the Nashua Association for the Elderly.
Alderwoman Melissa Golia?
Yes. I would move for final passage of R 17-143.
Motion is for final passage of R 17-143. Is there any discussion of that motion? Alderwoman Karen?
Yes, thank you. Since I sit on this board at this moment, should I recuse myself from voting?
I don't think you need to.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Alderman Schöneman?
I defer to Alderman Cookson.
Alderman Cookson?
Thank you, Alderman McCarthy. So when I joined the meeting, I heard some public comment from one of the speakers asking.
We can't hear you very well, Alderman Cookson.
Is this any better?
Yeah.
Okay, pardon me. So when I joined the meeting this evening, I joined during public comment, and I heard a speaker making comments about the contract or the contract between the city and the Senior Activity Center, and there were certain requests that were being made. How are those going to be addressed this evening?
I will ask Corporation Counsel if he understands what the issue is and what his opinion is on it.
Well, the question asked about how things are going to be handled, I guess that's up to the Board of Aldermen, and I'm unable to predict that. I have not heard that there's an issue concerning the proposed amendment. However, the speaker, Mr. Broderick, was correct. Both sides will need to properly adopt the amendment and sign the amended lease. So it doesn't matter who goes first. If the Board of Aldermen approves this amendment, if the Senior Activity Center or the National Association for the Elderly have not yet formally authorized this in accordance with their procedure, they will have to before it becomes effective.
Thank you, Attorney Bolton. Question, Alderman McCarthy.
Yep.
I would assume that this language has been reviewed with the Senior Activity Center. Is that correct? Is Alderman Karen able to answer that through you?
I was not at the September or October meeting, so I can't answer that.
Alderwoman Karen indicates she was not at the meeting where it was discussed.
The mayor.
Or not discussed? She's not able to.
Mayor Donchis may have some wisdom.
Well, for context, what the amendment would suggest is that the representatives of the city, namely David Fredette particularly and Alderman Karen as well, would not be limited to 2 terms serving on the board. Right now, Treasurer Fredette is completing his 2nd term or is about to complete it and would be disqualified from the board if the lease is not amended. Now, the request that we make this amendment came to us from the president of the board of the Senior Activity Center, namely Barney Barbera, and I believe he was speaking for the board when he brought this to us, suggesting that he would like, and the board would like, Dave Fredette, the city treasurer, to continue to serve because he's been a very constructive member of the board. I think Alderman Karen will ultimately possibly face this, but maybe not quite yet, maybe in another year or something like that. Their comments were the same regarding Alderman Karen, that they wouldn't want her participation to be terminated as a result of this lease provision. So, at least from everything Mr. Barbera said, the Senior Activity Board had reviewed this and had instructed him to request that we undertake this amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Alderman McCarthy, I guess my question then becomes, again, based on Mr. Broderick's comments, were that the anticipation would be that each one of these current designees from the city would ultimately become members of their full board, and in fact expanding their board rather than limiting the size. So my understanding is that they want to grow their board and they want more good people. So how does this eliminating the term limits allow them to grow the board and continue to keep Treasurer Fredette and Alderwoman Karen on the board?
Is there anybody who can answer that? Attorney Bolton, you want to try to answer that?
From what I understand, it has no impact as to whether the board grows or shrinks or stays the same. It doesn't interfere with that, it doesn't require it, and it doesn't prevent it.
But continuing to work in accordance with their bylaws, they would be able to grow their board by 2 members and have 2 additional members of the city designation brought forward, and that would be a short-term growth of additional members and keeping the highly qualified people that are currently on the board.
I don't see how that's possible. If the term limits apply to the city members as well as the other board members, it would not be possible for Mr. Fredette to continue without an amendment to the bylaws.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor at this time, and I'll be up shortly.
Alderman Shoneman?
Thank you. May I ask when Mr. Fredette's term is up?
You're going to ask, I don't know that we can
Okay,
answer.
that's fine, that's fine. Perhaps it's not imminent. My concern, listening to Mr. Broderick, is that it sounds like other members of the board would like to be able to, of their board would like to be able to weigh in on it. And if Mr. Fredette's term is not about to expire, I don't know there's any harm in getting those folks involved with the Finance Committee folks just to figure out their overall plan so that everyone is moving forward in sync. Would that be
Sir,
possible?
Are you moving to re-refer this to the?
I will
Finance
make a motion to re-refer it to the committee. Thank you.
Motion is to re-refer to the Finance Committee. Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. On the motion to re-refer, I would say that it's sort of an unnecessary step, and the reason that I feel that way is because, as Corporation Counsel has pointed out, the other side is going to have to agree to this lease deal regardless. So my feeling is that we ought to send it to them, and if they don't agree with it, they won't sign it, and they'll come back with another suggestion. But let's get the conversation going rather than putting this back into the committee, you know, and probably what would end up happening is having this go dead until the next Board of Aldermen comes in.
Alderman Dowd, did you?
I was just going to ask for a little clarification from finance, but I think we just got that.
All right, any further discussion of the motion to re-refer? Alderwoman Wilshire.
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Clemmons. I mean, their board came to us to ask for this change. And if they don't agree with the change we made, once we send it back to them, they don't sign it and they send it back to us. I think that's the appropriate move at this point.
Further discussion? Alderman Cookson.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have another piece of legislation coming before us this evening, I believe, with regard to absolute broadcasting. Is that correct?
I think so.
Has that already been passed this evening?
That may have.
That's the one that we already took care of.
Yeah.
Thank you. My understanding with that particular piece of that lease agreement was that the mayor went back or the mayor's designee went back and negotiated with Absolute Broadcasting, brought forward a lease agreement to finance, and that it ultimately wasn't approved that particular evening, and then some more work was done on it, and then it ultimately came back to us to approve, and then you approved it this evening. So I'm wondering, it really sounded like in the mayor's response to my earlier question was that he assumed that Mr., I think it's Barbera, had discussed this with the Senior Activity Center, but in fact, we don't know if that's the case or not. Is that correct? It threw you to the mayor?
Mayor Donchis.
Well, of course, this issue just has never come up before tonight. So, yeah, Mr. Barbera, the fact that there might be a disagreement or something. Mr. Barbera came in, asked that, said that the board really wanted Mr. Fredette, whose term is coming up pretty soon, and ultimately Alderman Karen to continue to serve, and asked that we amend the lease, the provision of the lease that requires that they be term limited. And so I said, great. I think David Fredette does a great job. I know Alderman Karen does as well. I've been over there a number of times with both of them, and sounds good. So let's propose the amendment and proceed. Now, tonight is the first time I've heard that something else. I think I've always found, I can't explain the disagreement or why that we've got a board member coming in and I think asking that we not take action right away. So I don't really have an explanation for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's what I heard, was that we don't take action on it. And we actually engage in conversation with the Senior Activity Center, which I agree with. And I don't think there would be any harm in us making sure that the lease agreement is mutually beneficial and has agreed upon language by both boards, the Senior Activity Center Board as well as this board, and in particular the Finance Committee. So I'm of the mindset that conversation would be beneficial, and I'd much rather see this go to the Senior Activity Center and go through the proper process and procedure in order to make sure that we're both mutually agreeable to the contract that ultimately comes before us to approve.
Alderman Clemens, am I led to understand that this amendment was proposed by the Senior Center and that we adopted it verbatim from what they proposed?
That's my understanding, and that's what Mr. Barbera came to speak about at the Finance Committee meeting that evening.
Alderman Dowd?
Yes, I think sending it back and forth is just delaying it. If they came to us and asked us to do something, went through finance, and there was an opportunity for people to look from concern to talk about it at the finance and the past finance, and I think that we should move it ahead. Also, we have had a hard time in the city at times finding qualified candidates to serve as volunteers in organizations like this. And I think the two people that we're talking about involved from the city have done a huge amount for the senior center or center for the elderly. And I think that we should pass this tonight, send it to them. If the majority of them have a problem with it, it'll come back. So I don't see why delaying it this evening would be a good move.
Any further discussion on the motion to refer? Alderwoman Lizzie Golia.
Yes. I agree with Alderman Clemens and Alderman Wilshire and Alderman Dowd. And just for clarification, this is only removing time limits for those two individuals who represent the city, both the representative from the mayor's office and from the Board of Aldermen. If we pass this and we send it to the Nashua Association for the Elderly, and they want to make other changes regarding time limits for other members, they would be able to do that and propose that and send it back to us, correct?
I think if they don't accept it as written, then they can come forward with whatever proposals they like.
Right. Okay, because I thought I heard in the public comment period that there might be other positions that it would be helpful to have time limits removed from so people could stay on the board while at the same time adding new members. So I just wanted to clarify that they could in fact come back and say, yeah, we like this, but we want to change this language also. Thank you.
Alderman Schoeneman.
Thanks. Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to point out that a motion to re-refer, it isn't a referendum on the two candidates, the two people that are involved in the board. That was made clear by the speaker tonight, and it's not a referendum on individuals. It was just a procedural thing. It sounded to me from the public comment that there was some kind of a disconnect with the chairman or the president of that board and his ability under their bylaws to represent the board if the board member who spoke didn't know anything about it. So it just seemed to me from a procedural standpoint that ought to be dealt with. And I understand that either way, it sounds like they can reject it and it comes back and just goes back and forth until it's done. But still, it just seemed right to me that it ought to be done with their cooperation ahead of time. Thank you.
Alderwoman Karen.
If you don't approve this tonight and send it to them, this will die because of the fact that the board only has one meeting, which is December 6th, so it would never get back in time. I don't know what caused this. My term actually ends on the 30th unless, I'm reappointed by the president, but that's not the issue. We have been getting new people on the board. Right now, we have several people who are on the board who are supposed to be reappointed or must go off the board because their term is long expired. So I don't think the president of the board of the senior center acted willfully. I think he was trying to get some action so that they would have a discussion about these term limits and moving it forward. Since Corporation Council says they do have to approve it in the end, I think the right thing to do is to approve it tonight and send it to them and let them have a conversation and duke it out or whatever it is. But that would be my suggestion.
Alderman Cookson.
Question for you, Alderman Karen, please. Thank you. Which board was meeting on the 6th of December?
The senior center has their regular board meeting on December 6th.
On December the 6th.
Right.
And you're indicating that if they don't take action or they're not able to take action because that's their only meeting?
That's their only meeting for the rest of the year, right? Because they normally would have met this week. And again in December.
I would assume that boards function in a way where they could call special meetings if necessary. Is that correct, Alderman Karen?
I'm sorry.
Could boards call special meetings if necessary to address pending legislation?
For them, you mean? For them, I would think so, but you're also
Okay.
dealing with holiday time.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to re-refer? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails. We are back to the motion for final passage of R-17-143. Further discussion? Alderman Cookson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would table it the full board until the Board of Directors of the Senior Activity Center has an opportunity to review the language and respond accordingly.
Roll call.
Motion is to table, and a roll call has been requested. Would the clerk please call a roll?
Alderman Wilshire.
No.
Alderman Clemmons.
No.
Alderman Tenza.
No.
Alderman Cookson.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
No.
Alderman Karen.
No.
Alderman Schoeneman.
Yes.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
No.
Alderman LeBrun.
Yes.
Alderman Moriarty.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
No.
Alderman Lopez.
No.
Alderman McCarthy.
No.
We have 4 yeas and 9 nays.
Motion fails. Back to the motion for final passage of R-17-143. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Motion carries, and R-17-143 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-146 relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $300,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety State Homeland Security Grant Program into Citywide Communications Grant Activity 2017 Nashville-Manchester Communications Redundancy Grant.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-17-146.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-146. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-146 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-147, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $15,000 from the United States Department of Homeland Security and the New Hampshire Department of Safety into Emergency Management Grant Activity 2016 Pre-Disaster Mitigation PDM Grant.
Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-17-147.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-147. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-147 is adopted.
Second reading on Resolution 17-149, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $58,000 from the state of New Hampshire into Police Grant Activity FY 2018 Violence Against Women Grant Program, and to authorize the transfer of $69,318.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I move for final passage of Resolution R-17-149.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-149. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? R-17-149 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-150, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $26,032.02 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety into Police Grant Activity FY 2018 Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program, STEP.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion of final passage of R-17-150.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-150. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-150 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-151, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $25,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Safety into Police Grant Activity FY 2018 Driving While Intoxicated DWI Enforcement.
Alderman Dowd.
Motion for final passage of R-17-151.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-151. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-151 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-152, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $200,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Natural and Cultural Resources into Community Development Grant Activity, Greeley Park Boat Ramp Improvements, and to authorize the transfer of $75,000 from general contingency.
Motion is, Alderman Clemmons. A little ahead of myself.
I would move for final passage of R-17-152.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-152. Is there any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-152 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-153, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of an additional $112,770.24 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services into Transit Grant Activity, Federal Transit Authority, FTA Operating Grant.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R-17-153.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-153. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-153 is adopted.
Second reading of Resolution 17-154, relative to the acceptance and appropriation of $65,000 from the State of New Hampshire Department of Transportation into Transit Grant Activity, Capital Outlay Rolling Stock.
Alderman Clemmons.
I would move for final passage of R-17-154.
Motion is for final passage of R-17-154. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and R-17-154 is adopted. Unfinished business ordinances.
Second reading of Ordinance 17-047, establishing a handicap parking space in front of 15 Merrill Street.
Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of 0-17-047.
Motion is for final passage of O-1747. Is there any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and 01747 is adopted.
Second reading of ordinance 17-048, authorizing stop signs on Beeson Street at its intersection with Berkeley and Raymond Streets.
Alderman Shoneman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of ordinance 17-048.
Motion is for final passage of ordinance 01748. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries, and 01748 is adopted.
Second reading of ordinance 17-049, removing the parking meters and establishing a 2-hour parking time limit on Cottage Street.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend final passage of O17-049.
Motion is for final passage of 01749. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and 01749 is adopted.
Second reading of ordinance 17-050, establishing a 2-hour parking time limit on Quincy Street.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of O17-050.
Motion is for final passage of 01750. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and 01750 is adopted.
Second reading of ordinance 17-051, adding additional streets to the overnight on-street parking program temporarily.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion to amend O17-051 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy provided with the agenda.
Motion is to amend 01751 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy provided with the agenda. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion for a final passage of O17-051 as amended.
Motion is for final passage of 01751 as amended. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and 01751 is adopted as amended.
Second reading of ordinance 17-052, authorizing free holiday parking at meters in Zone 3, which includes the Elm Street and High Street parking garages from December 10, 2017 through January 1, 2018.
Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to amend 0-17-052 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy provided with the agenda.
Motion is to amend 01752 by replacing it with the goldenrod copy provided with the agenda. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to make a motion for final passage of 0-17-052 as amended.
Motion is for final passage of 01752 as amended. Is there any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and 01752 is adopted as amended. New business resolutions.
First reading of Resolution 17-159, relative to the acceptance of a sculpture donated to the city by Charles and Mary Goyette.
Any additional sponsors? First of all, Alderwoman Wilshire, Alderwoman Melizzi Golia, Alderman Lopez, and myself. Alderwoman Wilshire.
I move that the rules be so far suspended as to allow for their second reading of Resolution 17-159.
Motion is that the rules be so far suspended as to allow for a second reading of R 17-159. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Second reading of Resolution 17-159, relative to the acceptance of a sculpture donated to the city by Charles and Mary Goyette.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I move for final passage of R 17-159.
Motion is for final passage of R 17-159. Is there any discussion? Alderman Shoneman.
Thank you. Just a question, Mr. President. What is it a sculpture of, and do we know where it's going to go?
Mayor Donches.
It is, rather than really a representational sculpture, it's kind of a more abstract one of a roundish shape, and it's going to go in Rotary Park, just south of the Adult Learning Center. And I should have mentioned at the beginning of the meeting that the dedication is Sunday at 1 o'clock. So if anybody would like to come, I would certainly encourage your doing so.
Further discussion? Alderman Lopez?
I would just like to thank the Goyettes for offering this and comment that Rotary Commons is getting quite a collection. It's kind of turning into like a little touring area for different sculptures.
Any further discussion? If not, Alderman Cookson.
Has this been reviewed by the Board of Public Works?
Mayor Donches?
I believe it has, yes. Now, I
So
was
what
not
their
at the last.
recommendation?
I was not at the last meeting, but I believe at that meeting they reviewed this and said yes.
Tell me how that happens, that we get this for our first reading, but the Board of Public Works has already addressed.
I think I said I
Oh, so
think
maybe it hasn't happened at all.
maybe, but there's some urgency because the dedication is Sunday, and one of the
Yes, the Board of Public Works
grantors.
has approved it.
Pardon me?
Yes, the Board of Public Works has approved it
I thought they
Where's
did.
that notated?
on the analysis portion of the resolution.
But one of the grantors is very ill, and so there's some urgency in getting this dedicated and having the ceremony as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries, and R-17-159 is adopted.
First reading of Resolution 17-160 relative to the transfer of $42,000 from Department 194 Contingency, Account 70100, General Contingency, to Department 109 Civic and Community Activities, Accounting Classification 56, Outside Agencies, for the purpose of providing funding to Revive Recovery, Inc. for a community recovery coach.
Additional sponsors, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Tenza, Alderwoman Wilshire, Alderwoman Karen, Alderman O'Brien, Alderman Lopez, Alderwoman Melizzi Golia. R-17-160 will be assigned to the Budget Review Committee. New business ordinances,
There are none.
period for public comment. No one has signed up. Remarks by members of the Board of Aldermen. I'll start over here. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. President, I would like to thank the people who worked with the holiday stroll and even with the people who have attended. It's a total success for my communication with the police department. It was some minor activity, but all in all, with the amount of people that come down there, it was a great, safe environment, and I heard Santa was good and everything. So it's a hallmark to what our city can do when we're on our best and everything, and it's a good reflection to the city. Second, I would like to thank the Human Affairs Committee for the yeoman work that they did to push through all those resolutions, so I thank you very much to the President. Thank you.
It ain't easy taking free money. Alderwoman Melizzi Golia.
I too would like to thank Great American Downtown and all of the other volunteers who made the stroll such a success. And just to remind everyone, next year will be the 25th anniversary of the stroll, so something to look forward to. I also just want to take a moment and comment on the work our firemen are doing. We've been hearing for a while now about the great work they're doing at safe stations, but I know several of you joined me at the Firemen's Ball, and if you looked at the program that was on the table that evening, you saw that they're doing all of those other things we think of firemen doing. And I was hoping to bring programs this evening, but couldn't get my hands on them. But I will leave some in the back. And as you go through there, you'll see that they're fighting fires, and they're doing a really great job in saving property. Our dive team, unfortunately, has been busier than we probably want it to be. And, of course, they've been assisting with auto accidents. So I would just like us to remember all of the other things they're doing and the great work they're doing in our community. for me, a sad note, I think all of you heard Mr. Hollowell is resigning from the Board of Ed, and I would like to thank him for his service and wish him well. Thank you.
Alderwoman Karen?
Yes, thank you. I also would like to wish Mr. Hollowell well on his future endeavors. I happened to watch that program last night, and he was very emotional when he gave his resignation to the board, and you can tell he's a very compassionate and caring person, and really took his job as a board member to heart. On a lighter note, the National Lions Club will be holding its second annual French Toast Breakfast at the Nashua Senior Center on Saturday from 8 to 11. The proceeds from that breakfast go directly to the Senior Center. There will also be a cookie walk, and I understand one of the staff members at the Senior Center spent their Thanksgiving weekends baking 500 cookies for this event. We also will be having the annual gingerbread contest. We have some really outstanding bakers out there. Also, Nashua Fire Department, the 7 stations are doing bread houses, and there'll be a separate contest just for them, and we're thrilled. So besides doing the good things that they do at the safe stations, they also give back to their community, so we're really pleased with that. So come on down, bring your children, your grandchildren. There'll be raffles. It's 8 to 11, and it's $6. And Mr. Fredette will be cooking.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, just a couple quick things. I also would like to extend my appreciation to Mr. Hollowell, who served the Board of Ed quite successfully for a long time. I think he's done a yeoman's job, and hate to see him go. The other thing is at the stroll, I had the opportunity from standing at the head of the Hunt Home, looking back. I can, and I have a video of it. It was wall-to-wall people all the way back to City Hall. There had to be at least 30,000 people there. And I talked to about 3 or 4 business owners down there that just said this is one of their biggest nights ever during the year. So this is greatly successful, and I just want to applaud the great American downtown organization for all the work they did to make it so successful. The other thing is, I'd like to thank the Nashua Country Club for donating the Christmas tree. It was huge, and to get it down there and get it all well decorated, that was a mammoth task. So to everybody involved, my thanks.
Alderman Cookson.
Thank you. I just wanted to make notice of a particular portion of our Board of Aldermen agendas that haven't been getting a lot of attention recently, probably, I would say, since about 2013. And that is, there's right after the reports of committee, there's a section called written reports from liaisons. And that portion of the agenda is intended to allow the liaisons, of which many of you are representing other boards, Board of Education, Board of Public Works, Senior Activity Center, and so forth and so on. This is an opportunity for members of the board to introduce to the Board of Aldermen any questions and concerns from that particular board that you're a liaison to. And it also provides you an opportunity to take questions and concerns from the Board of Aldermen back to those particular boards. So as we have a new board coming into the horseshoe this coming up term, 2018, 2019, it would be wonderful if they would take advantage of the opportunity that's been afforded to them and keep two-way communication happening between both the Board of Aldermen and the board that they liaise to. So again, every single meeting we have a portion called written reports from liaisons, and from my review of that, The very last report that I believe that we received that was dated was back in 2013. There may have been one that was more recent, but of all the committees that we liaise to, very lacking in content and sharing of information between this board and those other boards and committees. So take advantage of it. It's there. It's a great way to have two-way dialogue and bring concerns and issues from those boards that you're liaisoning to back to us so that we can address them in an appropriate and timely manner so that we're not faced with issues as we were with the Senior Activity Center tonight. So thank you.
Alderman Clemmons.
I've always enjoyed my colleagues' representation of the various boards that we are liaisons to, and never had an issue with finding out any information. I've always been satisfied, and if I have a question, I go up to my colleague and I ask them, or I attend the meeting, or I read the meeting's minutes. I don't see the need for the written reports from liaisons. I didn't vote for it, and maybe the next Board of Aldermen will get rid of it.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. Just to add to the list of great things that our firefighters do, they brought over a huge bucket of coats for our kids to try on where I work, and they donate warm coats to kids in need. So I know they do this throughout the school district as well. It's just a great program, and they've been doing it for some time. So I appreciate that as well. And also want to thank the Great American Downtown and all the merchants downtown and everybody who came out to the stroll. It was great. I thought it was really well attended. The weather was perfect. Might not have been so great for the ice sculptures, but for the strollers, I thought it was pretty good. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
Sorry, I kind of missed my cue when we were starting on this side. But the references and appreciation shown for the Human Affairs Committee, I just want to extend that to Alderman Cookson and the Committee on Infrastructure as well for meeting the day after Thanksgiving and helping review, or the day before Thanksgiving, to review some legislation, which I think is going to be very much appreciated by some of my constituents on Cottage Street and also those looking for relief and overnight parking. So I just wanted to extend my appreciation to the other members of the committee. And then also I wanted to comment on how well organized Great American Downtown was with the holiday stroll with regards to their logistics and their promotion. They had new ways to advertise what was where, and I know a lot of people were really enjoying some of the shows. It looked like there were more stages than I've ever seen out before. And I also want to extend my appreciation to the city departments who supported it, because there were dump trucks blocking traffic access everywhere. The police and fire were supportive and present everywhere. So it's great to see such a great turnout, and it's great to see so many people celebrating the holidays festively, but it's also very reassuring to know that we're safe while we're doing it.
Committee announcements. Is there a motion? Alderwoman Wilshire.
Move to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we're adjourned at 8:54.